So we talked about the path toward greater mercy, and one of the things I had to do was begin to look at myself. Go to the great counselor physician and ask him for help to see in me what are the hurtful ways in me. The next thing I had to be able to do, Kay, was to show mercy to you by helping you heal your hurts of the past. And why don't you pick it up from here?
Well, we want you to understand that most likely the thing that bugs you the most about your spouse has a wound sitting underneath it. And if you can understand the wound and offer comfort, that's part of the healing process. Marriage has the most potential to hurt and to heal. And we want to give you a path to healing today so you feel like you can really make progress. But Milan gave me what I never experienced as a child.
You can't hear her, can you? Okay, can you hear me? Okay. All right, let's switch microphones.
Sorry about that. Okay, so what I was saying is marriage has a great power to hurt, but also to heal. And one of the ways Milan has shown mercy to me is by helping me heal the wounds of my past and giving me what I never got as a child. Of course, I had to be willing to receive that, but to give me empathy and comfort and a listening ear and the ability to ask questions, to go deeper. These were things we learned to do that really healed the wounds of my past because they were directed at the particular things I experienced in my own family. And then I would say that was true in reverse for you. So validation, compassion, those were things that you gave me that were very healing for me.
So that little scene we showed you of me coming home, wanting to cook with her, checking the refrigerator, be together, are you mad at me, are you mad at me? Really what that was, Kay, was I was pursuing you because I was anxious, just like your mom. We didn't understand that at first. We had to get a hold of that concept. Mine was an anxious pursuit. I was triggered when you wouldn't see me or look at me, and it caused me to be afraid. Also, your introvert was quiet. But at my home, growing up, quietness meant a storm was coming. Quietness meant, or there had been a blow up and there was going to be quiet for days. So I didn't know how to interpret quietness. I didn't know the introvert just needed to recharge their battery by being alone. So to have an avoider and an introvert was sort of a double whammy with respect to being easily triggered. And I had to tell you those things that triggered me, and you had to explain them. And then if I was overly pursuing you, you could turn to me and say, are you feeling anxious? I learned to ask you if I was overwhelming you. And then I realized that Kay had so much distance in her family. She was so used to this that for me to be like this was way too much for her. It overwhelmed her. So we had a lot of conversations like this. So, Kate, tell me what you're feeling. I'm not kidding. Not quite like this, but kind of like this, where I would put myself in a lower position. I would avert my gaze. I'd wait for her to answer. I wouldn't keep pressing her for answers. I wouldn't be saying, well, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Did that help you?
You know what? Why don't you just introduce that and I'll get a couple out here and ready.
Deal. Okay, so number 5 in your outline. Ready? Number 5 in your outline. Tools to help you learn to be like Jesus and enter the pain, both in yourselves and others, so that you can find freedom and healing. What are the tools? There are 4 tools in your little toolbox that we've given you today. A comfort circle, a soul word list, a comfort circle guide for the listener that our couple's going to use here on stage. You'll see how it works. And then practicing conversations, which is a list of questions you can learn to use as you enter into each other. What's a comfort circle? Turn to that page. What page is it on? 3. Turn to page 3, and at the top of the page is self-awareness. The day I said to Kay, I have fear inside, was the day my self-awareness began to grow. I didn't know that word until I looked at the soul word list, which is the next page, and I could say, aha, of all those things, what am I feeling? And the soul word list were the descriptors of my soul. So that's step number one, self-awareness at the top of the comfort circle. Kay and I developed self-awareness. Number two is speak the truth in love. Speak the truth. Do you think that as a pleaser, I wanted to speak the truth or hear truth? I'm on the comfort circle, okay? Look at the comfort circle diagram. Do you think I wanted to speak the truth? No, I was afraid to speak the truth. I was afraid that by speaking the truth, I might create a separation between you and me. Yet the Bible says, speak the truth and love each one of you with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. The closest member of the body of Christ is my bride. I have to learn to speak. I had to bend my knee to the cross right there. Point three on the comfort circle is listen. The Bible says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. What do? We do it the opposite. We're quick to speak, and we're quick to get angry, and we don't listen to diddly squat. We don't ask any questions. That's why practicing conversations has a bunch of questions. Kay and I had to learn to thoroughly listen to each other's hearts and minds. And we had to be patient. It was frightening to hear what was in her soul. It was scary to hear what was in her soul. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyhow because Christ commanded me. And then point four on the comfort circle is comfort one another. There's supposed to be resolution of some sort. At the end of number three, it's after I validate, I would ask, what do you need? And by asking the person what they need, I find out what their emotional needs are right this very second. And I can then choose to do them or perhaps wait and delay, or maybe they're asking me something that's unreasonable and we can negotiate, but at least asking them what they need, I can begin to come to a place where I understand what their needs are, not mine that I want to impose upon them. It takes time and effort to do these things. We started this at the 15-year mark of our marriage. And what's our next anniversary number?
44.
There you got it. That's right, 44. In 3 weeks will be 44 years of marriage. But we worked our way through conversations just like this, and they were frightening and scary and sweaty and sobby and tearful and agitating, but they got us to a very different place. And do we ever accomplish anything worth doing without hard work? Yet we want romance to be so easy, don't we? Yet it takes hard work. All right, let's go on to our next point.
Okay.
The destination of where we want to go. The destination. The destination of the result of the journey is that we would become the throne of grace and mercy to one another. The throne of grace and mercy to one another. What do I mean by that? If you look at Hebrews chapter 4, it says, we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin. Let us draw near, therefore, to the throne of grace, that we might find grace and mercy at a time of need. After conversations like this, we began to not be judgmental, but we began to have weakness in ourself that we were aware of, so that we could tolerate and accept another person's weakness. Just like Christ. He didn't sin, we sin. That's where the metaphor isn't parallel. But we became a throne of grace. We could have mercy for each other. Knowing our own weakness, we could embrace the weakness of others. And one of the things we did is we did a lot of comfort and holding. When a person's in pain, we'd have a conversation like that, and one of us would ask the other person, would you like to do a holding time? And so we learned to hold each other in a way that was very restorative, healing, and filled with mercy. And this is one of the ways that...
No, just stay there.
You want me to stay here?
Yeah.
I would hold Kay like this. Now, why don't you take your microphone off? So I would hold Kay like this, especially after she would cry, or especially after a conversation where I could see the little girl inside, and I could see one of those boxcars, and I could say, that must have been so hard to go through or to be ignored. Clearly, in this kind of a holding time where I'm looking at her and talking to her, this was very hard at first, because it's hard to be in close proximity like this. If you're not married, you can still connect with people in such a way that you're close and you see them and they know they're being seen in a very emotionally powerful way. But here I'm clearly the giver, she's clearly the receiver. And as such, I'm comforting that place of hurt on the inside. Instead of being judgmental and critical, I'll say, thanks for telling me of a hurtful place. I could see that that still is a part of your life, and I could still see why it's hard for you to look at people, why people can be overwhelming. And instead of being offended and criticizing for her averted gaze, I could look at her and say, I understand why it's hard for you to look at people, including me. And I could comfort her. Would you add anything to what I just said?
Yeah, this is how I started.
She did. She couldn't look at me. At a year and a half, this is how she was. And to try and get her to open her eyes took a year and a half before she could look at me.
How many of you avoiders are looking at that and going, "Whoa, boy"? But I have to say that was one of the most transformative things we did in our marriage, because it's not about sex, it's about emotional connection, which, by the way, in the long run makes your sex life a lot better. I never got that in my childhood home, so he was giving me something I never got. No one ever held me like that I can remember. Obviously, you hold babies, but we don't remember that. I'm talking about, there's plenty of things kids go through, even a best friend moving away. Those are hard things. For kids, that's everything. But that was very hard for me to learn, and he would say to me, I think you need a holding time. And I wasn't like, okay. I was like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, you haven't made eye contact all day. And if I let him hold me, I would almost always cry. Sometimes I knew why, sometimes I didn't. I think I was crying a lot of tears that I could never cry as a kid. And the next day I would feel like $1 million. That's the only thing that kept me doing it, is how I would feel the next day. Because now I understand crying releases endorphins. Crying releases stress hormones in your tears. Not if you cut an onion, there's no stress hormones. But if you cry, emotional tears, stress hormones are actually in your tears. So sometimes I hold him like he just held me.
Hold on one sec. If I said you hadn't made eye contact all day, I wonder if something's going on inside of you. At that point, it wasn't the fearful me saying that because it was about me. It was about, I do wonder what's going on inside of you today, and offering to explore that. So it wasn't born out of my need, it was born out of, because we'd sort of transitioned at that point where we could actually come rescue each other in a sense, or come to one another's aid. And it was less about our needing something, and it was about seeing that you were in distress.
Right.
And that perhaps that would be a helpful exercise. And that was a distinction. That was a place where we sort of crossed a threshold and went into another arena. again, we did this all before we ever went into counseling or writing books or whatever. Our book is the story of this, what we learned by this process where we were kind of like the blind leading the blind, but we had God telling us certain things to do, which we did, and the fruit of that was remarkable. So sometimes I'd put my head in Kay's lap, and I hang over beds and couches and stuff because I'm tall, but I would lay down like this, and
Now who's the giver? I am. So it's just another way. There's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just another way. But clearly this could be for nurturing. This could be for processing pain. You know, I could just take them through a relaxation exercise after a stressful day.
we could do the comfort circle this way.
You could do the comfort circle this way. Give me 3 feelings about your day is a great way to enter and back into home in the evening. Just give me 3 feelings. So I could say, give me 3 feelings about your day. And you could answer, but we don't have time. So, you want to stay here?
This is very comfortable.
All right, so we know we've given you a lot today. If there's something that you didn't get in the back that you wanted, you can go on the website and look for it if there's a product that you wanted. We also want you to know that there's a new small group curriculum that we just came out with, that you can do this in a small group. And it's 9 weeks, 2.5 hours per session, and you actually do practice the comfort circle in the group. So those are back there as well. And Elizabeth, you were all coming in when Elizabeth talked about an event she's going to have, and I wanted to tell you again what it is, because Elizabeth, her work with kids is beyond amazing, and she can take you from an angry parent to a compassionate parent by going through her curriculum.
And the reason that,
She's right behind us.
and I trust her, so it's okay for her to be behind me. So last summer we went to Africa with Glenn and Elizabeth, and we talked about this kind of emotional and relational connection, because as Elizabeth said, what home is an orphan going to come into? What environment is that child going to be placed into a home? And is there enough of a stability here that we can float another person in our family and take good care of them and not miss them? And so we're going again in June to do another series of talks and workshops in Africa, again for the purpose of the Orphan Care Initiative, and we're just delighted to be a part of everything that Elizabeth does. She's a great woman.
Yeah, so tell them again about your workshop in June. Okay. Oh.
Thank our video and our people. Just to know that what you've invested today, there's more. Because aren't you leaving wishing you had more? So there's more in terms of the resources you have at the table. And for folks, if they're out of them, you can still get the price. In terms of what we have, if you go on to orphansandthechurch.com, actually, I don't even need to say more. It's right here in your little packet on your lap are the ways to connect with you all, if you'd like to have more connection with you. Also on your packet are the ways to connect with Saddleback Church and the Orphan Care Initiative. And we officially launch you all. You can come with us to Rwanda, because everything that you learned today, God's healing each of us. I love what you say. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage, only a growing marriage. And so we're all in that together, and as God heals us, God's going to use you to heal your own home, each other, and the world.